The late summer air of St. Louis, Missouri, shimmered on the highway as Marcus Hale guided his deep blue Dodge Durango down I-64. It was a Friday evening, the kind that pulled families toward barbecue grills, community baseball games, and front porches strung with citronella candles. Marcus had spent the last 3 days transporting a fugitive across state lines. Routine work for a U.S. Marshal, though rarely simple. He was tired, wanting nothing more than to be home before his wife, Dana, put their daughter, Ari, to bed. Their nightly routine mattered to him. Bath time, bedtime stories, and the kiss on her forehead that always softened the hard edges of his job. He checked the digital clock. 7:42 p.m. If he made the next exit, he could grab Dana's favorite peach cobbler from the little soul food bakery by their house. It was a tradition his father raised him on. Never come home empty-handed after time away, his dad used to say. Traffic thinned and Marcus relaxed his shoulders. His badge rested in the center console, his federal credentials tucked inside his wallet. He wasn't in uniform, he didn't need to be. Just a black man driving an SUV, wearing a gray hoodie and jeans. The radio hummed old-school R&B, smooth and familiar. Then he noticed the patrol car. A white cruiser sat on the shoulder. As Marcus passed, the cruiser pulled onto the road, accelerating sharply. He glanced into the rearview mirror. Lights flashed red and blue. "You've got to be kidding me." He signaled, eased into the right lane and slowed. His stomach tightened instinctively. Even after 15 years in law enforcement, being stopped by police as a black man in America carried a weight he wished he could shake. Still, he did what he'd coached others to do. Hands visible, movements slow, patience steady. He pulled over. The patrol car parked aggressively behind him, tires grinding gravel. 2 officers stepped out, both white, mid-30s, the kind of swagger Marcus recognized instantly. One tall and square-jawed, the other wiry with restless, darting eyes. The tall one approached the passenger side and tapped the window hard. The wiry one came to Marcus's door, hand resting on his gun. "Evening, officer," Marcus said calmly through the open window. "License and registration." The wiry officer didn't say please, didn't offer explanation, just command. Marcus offered a polite nod. "Sure. My wallet is in my back pocket. I'm gonna reach for it slowly." The officer's hand slid higher on his holster. "Just do it." Marcus moved carefully. "I didn't notice speeding. Mind telling me what the stop's about?" "Window tint too dark," the officer snapped. Marcus resisted the urge to laugh. The tint was factory standard. But he knew better than to argue. The tall officer circled the vehicle, shining his flashlight directly into Marcus's face. "Where you coming from tonight?" "Work." "Yeah. What kind of work you do?" the wiry one asked with a smirk. Marcus inhaled slowly. "Law enforcement." That made the wiry one chuckle. "Sure you are." The tall officer motioned him out of the car. "Step out. We're searching the vehicle." Marcus blinked. "Do you have probable cause?" "We'll decide that," the wiry officer said. "Get out. Now." Marcus stepped out, hands visible. He was taller than both officers, built like he used to play college ball. Broad shoulders, steady gaze, calm presence. But they didn't see that. They saw a black man questioning them. As he stood on the shoulder of the road, the wiry officer shoved him toward the hood. "Hands on the vehicle." "Officer." "Hands." "Vehicle." Marcus complied. The tall officer rifled through the Durango, tossing aside his duffel bag, scattering his work folder, even opening Ari's backpack where she kept her crayons and picture books. It took everything in Marcus not to react. He had endured prejudice before, insults from people who didn't know him. But tonight, exhaustion made his patience thin. "Just get home," he reminded himself. The wiry officer leaned close. "Long day, huh? Maybe don't drive around looking suspicious." Marcus closed his eyes and counted to 3. He was seconds away from identifying himself. Seconds away from ending this. Dana's peach cobbler container tumbled out of the back seat and landed on the pavement. The tall officer crushed it under his boot without looking. "That did it." "Officer," Marcus said firmly, standing upright. "This stop has gone far beyond a tint check." Stay where you are," the wiry officer barked, reaching for his handcuffs. "You're resisting." Marcus stayed perfectly still. "I am not resisting. And I'm informing you that I am a federal." The officer grabbed Marcus's wrist forcefully. In that instant, everything inside Marcus shifted. The lawman in him rising, the federal training snapping into place. "Do not put your hands on me," Marcus said, authoritative and calm. "I am Deputy U.S. Marshal Marcus Hale. My credentials are in the front seat center console." The wiry officer scoffed. "Bull." The tall officer froze. His tone changed, uncertain. "Did he say U.S. Marshal?" Marcus nodded once. "Yes. And you're about 3 seconds from unlawfully detaining a federal officer." The wiry one's face paled. His grip loosened. The tall officer scrambled back to the open door of the Durango and spotted the badge. Polished, unmistakable federal. He swallowed hard. Sarge," he muttered to his partner. "It's legit." The wiry officer stepped back. "Why didn't you say something earlier?" Marcus stared at him. "I tried." The wiry officer scratched the back of his neck, suddenly avoiding eye contact. "Well, our mistake. You can go." Marcus didn't move. "You trashed my vehicle. You threatened me. One of you put your hands on me without cause. And you know factory tint isn't a traffic stoppable offense in this county." The tall officer cleared his throat. "We just, had reason to be cautious." "Cautious," Marcus repeated, letting the word hang. He looked at the crushed peach cobbler. Looked at Ari's spilled crayons. Looked at 2 cops who weren't sorry, just scared. "Get your supervisor," Marcus said. The wiry one stiffened. "We don't need supervisor now." They hesitated, but the tall officer radioed it in. Marcus crossed his arms, steady as steel. 15 minutes later, headlights approached. A larger SUV pulled up, and Lieutenant Sarah Whitaker, a white woman in her mid-40s with a no-nonsense presence, stepped out. She had the look of someone who'd spent years balancing community pressure, officer mistakes, and the truth. She approached Marcus first. "Deputy Hale," she said, extending a respectful hand. "I'm Lieutenant Whitaker. I understand there's been an incident. A preventable one." She nodded. "I'd like to hear your account." Marcus told her everything. Calm, factual, measured. He didn't exaggerate, didn't embellish. He spoke like a man who spent his life telling the truth, even when people didn't want to hear it. Whitaker's jaw tightened as he spoke. When he finished, she turned to her officers. "Did you search his vehicle without cause?" Silence. "Did you place your hands on him after he identified himself?" More silence. She exhaled sharply, disappointment replacing anger. "Both of you in the cruiser. Now." The wiry one stammered. "Lieutenant, we didn't know." "Exactly," she cut him off. "And that's the problem." The 2 officers retreated toward their car. Whitaker turned back to Marcus. "Deputy, I want to apologize. This department has had issues with bias in the past, and we're working to fix it. But tonight we failed. If you'd like to file an internal complaint, I'll personally oversee it." Marcus looked at the spilled items from his car, the crushed dessert he meant for his family. "Lieutenant," he said, "I don't want paperwork. I want accountability. And I want those officers in a program that actually teaches them how to treat people. Not just cops, not just federal officers, but human beings." Whitaker nodded slowly. "I can do that." He studied her eyes. He meant it. "And," he continued, "I want them to apologize." Whitaker called the officers back. They stood stiff and uncomfortable. Marcus watched them struggle to find words. Real remorse? Probably not. But accountability started somewhere. The tall officer spoke first. "We're sorry. We mishandled the stop." The wiry one muttered. "Yeah. Sorry." Marcus nodded once. "Thank you." Not forgiven but acknowledged. Whitaker handed him a card. "If anything further comes of this, call me. Anytime." Marcus tucked it into his wallet. Then he picked up Ari's crayons, closed his scattered folders, and got back into the Durango. By the time Marcus reached his neighborhood, twilight had settled into a warm amber glow. Porch lights flickered on across quiet suburban lawns. Kids rode their bikes in widening circles, ignoring parents calling them in for dinner. The smell of grilled steaks drifted through the street, an American Friday settling into its familiar rhythm. Marcus pulled into his driveway. Inside, Dana met him at the door, worry etched into her face. "You're later than usual." Marcus forced a smile and kissed her cheek. Long evening. Ari ran toward him wearing unicorn pajamas. Daddy. He scooped her up, breathing in the sweet scent of baby shampoo. Did you bring cobbler? Dana teased gently. He looked at her apologetically. It didn't survive. She raised an eyebrow but didn't push. She knew him better than anyone, knew when something deeper sat under the surface. After Ari went to bed, they sat on the couch, soft jazz humming from the speaker. What happened? Dana asked. Marcus told her everything. Fully. Honestly. His voice steady but heavy. When he finished, Dana rested her hand on his chest. I'm glad you're safe. So am I, he whispered. But I'm also proud of you, she added. Not for being a marshal. For handling it the way you did. For demanding better. For not letting anger eat you alive. He leaned his head back. It's exhausting, Dana. Every time it happens I feel smaller. Like they don't see the work I've done, the service I give, the life we've built. They just see a black guy in a nice car. She squeezed his hand. But today someone did listen. That lieutenant. She tried. Maybe those officers will learn. Maybe someone will think twice next time. It matters. He breathed deeply, letting her words settle. Maybe it did matter. 2 weeks later, Marcus received a call. Deputy Hale? This is Lieutenant Whitaker. He stepped outside the marshal's office, leaning against the brick wall. Lieutenant. Everything okay? I thought you should know. Both officers completed the bias training program. They weren't happy about it, but they did the work. And we've implemented a new review process for stops like the one you experienced. Marcus exhaled. I appreciate you following through. There's more, she said. They asked if you'd be willing to join one of our community sessions next month. To talk about the role of federal officers, citizens' rights during traffic stops and, well, your perspective. Marcus hesitated. Deputy, I know you don't owe us anything, Whitaker added. But hearing from someone who handled a bad stop with integrity, it could make a real difference. He looked out at the city, its skyline sharp against the early autumn sky. It's not about owing anything, he said finally. It's about trying to make things better. So you'll do it? Marcus smiled. Yeah. I'll do it. When he hung up, he felt something lift from his shoulders. Not justice. Not closure. But progress, small, imperfect but real. That evening Marcus brought home peach cobbler. Dana laughed when she saw it. Ari squealed and grabbed a spoon. The three of them sat together at the dining table, warm cobbler steaming between them, jazz playing softly in the background. For the first time since the stop, Marcus felt whole again. Not because the world had changed overnight, but because he did what he always believed in. Standing firm, staying human, choosing courage over anger and creating change where he could. And in that warm, peach-scented kitchen, surrounded by the family he loved, that was enough.